All right, welcome everyone. Today we're going to be going into session 4 and we're going to be talking about dictionary literals. So what is a dictionary? A dictionary literal is a data type that holds a collection of properties where each property is an association between a name, which is a key, and a value. All right, so we have a format of a dictionary. We know that it's a dictionary because we see these curly brackets. And then outside of those curly brackets, we have key values. So keys could either be strings or numbers. The values could be any given data type. We could have a dictionary inside of a dictionary. We could have list, we could have booleans, we could have any other type of data type within a dictionary, including tuples. So example representation, we have a person, which would have a first name, a last name, an eye color, and age. All right, a dictionary literal keys and values do not have to just be string data types. They can be other types as well. So again, the keys have to be either strings or numbers, but the values do not. Here we see an example where we're providing a list of strings that's talking about the different types of programming languages that are available, or programming skills that are available. And then cohorts is a dictionary, and this dictionary has a key and a value list inside of it. And that's how we can get things nested pretty well. All right, so let's use an example using a dictionary literal. Organization. So the organization has a name and a type. So code Platoon, and it's a nonprofit. So we need to remember the format. And in the format of a dictionary, we have the key and a value and so on. So we want to access the value by key, we use the bracket notation. So in this example, we're going to print the organization. We start the brackets, and then we use name. So when this print statement gets processed, we'll see code Platoon coming out onto our shell. All right, interacting with the dictionary literal. And I'm going to go through the PowerPoint rather quickly so that we can get to the code part. I feel like things will make more sense once we actually get to code. All right, let's use a simple dictionary literal example. So we're going to let organization, we have the keys. All right, so here we go. When in is used beside a dictionary, it can check for containment against the existing keys. So here we're going to ask if the name key is inside of organization, then print true, else print false. So this is going to say, hey, is name a key inside organization? And here we see that we have the key of name. So once we run this code, we'll see true. And then here's a couple of dictionary methods that we could use. We could go into the dictionary site and get a bunch of them. But here's the more typical ones that we'll actually be able to use and that will be handy to us. So we have the dictionary setDefault, which will take in a key. And if the key does not exist, then we could give it a value instead of just returning a none or returning an error saying that it doesn't exist. This will say, okay, well, this isn't in there, so I'm just going to give it this default value now. And if it is in there, then it will return the original value that's in there. So now we have dictionary keys. It's going to return a list of keys inside of the dictionary. We have the values, which will return a list of the values. And we have items, which returns a list of tuples that has a key value pair. And I believe that's it for the PowerPoint, but let's actually take a look at some code. All right, so we go into dictionaries. So we know that dictionaries are dictionary literals. So let's start with, let's say, a student, right? So a student must have a name. And let's go with Francisco. What else should a student have? The student should have, let's say, uniform. And then let's say that in this uniform, he has different things that go inside of the uniform. So let's say he has a shirt. And then let's say the shirt is, I don't know, a brown shirt with some black pants. Oh, this should say pants. And then let's say shoes are dress shoes. All right, and let's say present, or let's just say good student. And let's make this true. And we see how we're getting this red line up here. It's telling me that there's invalid syntax, and that's because I forgot to put a comma after finishing this key pair. Okay, so now we have a good student, that is true, and let's say that he has friends. And for friends, we'll just make a list of them. So all right. So now we have a dictionary. We have names. We have the student has a name. He has a uniform, which has a dictionary inside of it. With shirt, pants, and shoes. We have a Boolean variable, whether he's a good student or not, and he has friends, which gives us a list of friends. Does anyone have any questions over how I constructed this dictionary? Okay, great. So let's move up. Let's move on into keys. So we have keys could be both strings and numbers. So now let's say that I wanted to say, I don't know, 23. And let's say that 23 is false. And I guess 23 could just represent my age. I would, this could work, and you could use a dictionary this way where you could have each individual index, right? Let's say if I wanted to iterate through a list and I wanted to make a dictionary for every index, I can make each key the index and then have a value corresponding to that index, depending on what it is that I want to do. But this is valid. I can grab this and manipulate it if I need to. So now we have values and data types. We already kind of covered over that. So in values, we have string for Francisco, Boolean, we have a dictionary as a value, another Boolean, and we have a list of strings. Okay, so accessing inside of a dictionary through square brackets versus get. So let's say that I wanted to know what the student's name was. So I could say student name. And let's actually print that. So now we see that the student name gets printed, right? So I'm accessing the student dictionary. So it goes into the variable, goes into the dictionary, and then I'm telling it to grab name. So it grabs name and prints out Francisco. Okay, great. So now let's say that I want to grab something that doesn't exist. Say that I wanted to grab greeting. I wonder what that would give me. Okay, so when I run that, if I try to grab greeting, it automatically tells me that there's no such thing as greeting in there. And it kind of depends on the behavior that you want. Typically, you don't want your program to break if something doesn't exist in there. You want your program to actually be somewhat flexible. So instead of using the square bracket notation, what we can use is we can use the dictionary method of get. So now I'm going to tell it to go into student and get greeting. And now since there's no such thing as greeting, it just returns none. It's telling me, hey, there's no such thing as greeting, so this doesn't exist. But my program didn't break, and I can continue to compile the code. I can do it for something that does exist. Now let's say uniform. And now we see that the dictionary that we assigned to the uniform variable gets printed as well. I strongly suggest that you try to use get more often than using the square bracket notations. But if you decide to use the square bracket notations, I fully understand. All right. So this is the difference between grabbing a value from a dictionary between square brackets and the get method. So now let's say we want to access through setDefault. And actually, we'll save this one for last. So let's copy that one. So now let's say we want to update our dictionary. We want to add some fields to a student. So let's say student info. Let's say I want age. And put age. Let's say I want email. Put an email in there and let's add. Can't think of something else. Let's see. Locker number. And for locker number, let's put 23. And last thing, say always does his homework. We'll want to make sure we try to not use abbreviations. And for this one, I'm going to make it false. And lastly, I want classes. And for classes, I want science, math, history. Yeah, so now you have these two independent dictionaries, but let's say that I wanted student info to be inside of student. So what I can do is use the update method. I can say student.update, and I wanted to update through student info. And now let's say I wanted to print student. So let's comment out these three. And let's print student before. And let's print student after so that we can see him. Okay, so we can see the first student dictionary being printed. And we can tell that the second student dictionary is substantially larger. In the second student dictionary, after friends, we're going to see that upon friends finishing, the next key will be age. So all we did was take the secondary dictionary and added it to our first one. So this is going to be really good once you guys start working with data manipulation, or even just once you start working with object-oriented programming or working with APIs. Once you start deciding to send back information, any type of information that's being sent back between your front-end framework and your back-end framework will always be in a dictionary format. So learning how to manipulate dictionaries and how to organize them is going to be super important. Okay.
Hey, I have a question.
Go ahead.
When you highlighted lines 19 through 21 and you made them comments, what was the button you pushed for that?
It's going to be, if you're on a MacBook, it's going to be Command/. If you're on a Windows, it's going to be Control/.
Okay, thank you.
No problem at all. And I should probably get you guys a keyboard shortcut sheet. So I apologize for not giving that to you. All right, so we just went over the update method, and it's essentially just adding one dictionary to the other. Now, keep in mind, student info still exists. And let me highlight this one. All right, so although we updated the first dictionary of student to hold student info within it, student info still exists on its own without having the remainder of student within it. Let's leave it updated so that we could work with it. Okay, so we got delete and pop. So now let's say we wanted to remove things out of our dictionary. All right. So for example, we got this 23 false. We have no idea what it's doing. We don't need it. So let's remove it. So now I can say I want to delete. And from delete, I want to delete from student. And what I want to delete from there will be 23. So now let's print student. And again, let's do it before and after. And I'm just going to print a new line statement to separate them. Okay, so we see it printed the first time, then we see the after delete print statement with our new line. So we got name and 23 still in there. And now when I do it after delete, 23 is no longer in there. I will no longer see delete. Now let's say that I wanted to remove that, but I also wanted to keep that information. So let's comment this out. And instead, let's say I call miscellaneous, can't spell miscellaneous, but I probably, but should be close enough. Let's say miscellaneous data. And instead I want to use the pop method. So now I'm going to go to student.pop and I'm going to pop at 23. So now and let's make this into an F string. Say data deleted. And let's have miscellaneous data in there. Okay, so this is going to remove whatever is at the key value pair of 23 from our dictionary, but then it's going to store that information. It's going to store at least the value, not the key. It will store the value inside miscellaneous data. And then when we print student, we'll see that it's been removed. And when we print the data was deleted we'll see the value of 23, which in this case is false. So let's clear it and let's run it. Okay. So we see the 23 in key. Okay. Now we see it without it, skips right into uniform. So the key of 23 and the value of false have been removed, but the value of false has been retained inside the variable of miscellaneous data. All right, so it's just like a function that has a return value, and what it will return is whatever it is that it removed from the dictionary. And now when I go to print that the data was deleted, it says false, because that was the value of our key of 23. Okay, does anyone have any questions over updating a dictionary, using the delete method for a dictionary, and using a pop
Can you
method?
go over it one more time? I'm confusing.
Could you say that again?
Can you please go over that one more time? It's kind of confusing.
Yeah, of course. It might be because I'm using 23. Instead, let's use email in this case. All right. All right. So we see the first print statement. And in the first print statement, we see that email is still there. We see fr.com, all right? Then we use the student.pop method, and now the email is gone. It's no longer inside of our dictionary, but we did assign it as the value of this variable. So now miscellaneous data is going to hold that email address or that string inside of the email key. So if I was to print here, data deleted was, and then it has miscellaneous data, it's going to give me the value of whatever was returned from this function. So when I run it, we see the email, which is fr.com. It's been removed from my student dictionary, but the value was returned to miscellaneous data and was then printed into my console in this F string down here. Does that make sense, Akeem?
Yeah, but the you have the F string data deleted was. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, see now.
Okay, perfect. All right, so now we just went over the .pop and delete. So benefits of .pop is it's a function that will return whatever value it is that it deleted, while delete doesn't return anything. Delete will just get rid of the data and data dump it so that we won't ever see it again. All right. So now let's keep moving forward here. So we got keys, items, and let's see what we can get here. So let's say that all I wanted was the values of a dictionary. What I can say is to print student.values. And this will now return to me dict values, and it returns all of the values that correspond to it. Yeah, so we see. Let me print the student up here. It might be easier to see it. Okay, so we see the actual dictionary that we have for student, and now we got a list of values, right? So in this list of values, we have Francisco, we have false. Oh, so sorry. Let me clearing this up. So we got Francisco, which is the corresponding value of the key of name. We got false, the corresponding value of the key of 23. We see this dictionary, which is the value corresponding to the key of uniform. And so on, right? We even get the whole list. That's the corresponding value to the key of friends. So using the values keyword will return to me all the values corresponding to the dictionary. Now let's say that I wanted the keys instead. Right, so now we have keys. We see that it has name, 23, uniform. All the keys that are within of the dictionary are being printed out, and I could see them this way. I could even manipulate the data. Let's say I just wanted the index of 0, because now this is just a list, right? So I could say index 0, print it out, but it's going to tell me that dict keys object is not subscriptable. So if it tells me that dict keys objects is not subscriptable, let me go back and show you guys what it's doing, right? So this is coming back as a dict keys, and then it has the parentheses holding our list. And it's saying it's not subscriptable. So now if I put it all inside of parentheses and I cast it into a list, oh, no. Apparently I can't spell, I apologize.
You missed your 3 in the Python. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I could either specify 3 or I could let my compiler figure out, know that Python is an alias for Python 3. But you typically do want to put the 3 at the end. But now we see that I cast it into a list, and now when I printed it, it gave me strictly just the list, and it didn't have the dict keys. All right, so now I could actually go into index 0, or I could use any of the methods that I would like to use from the list, or that any list methods that apply. So I could even join it. Item 1, but to string instance. Oh, we have an integer within our list, so it messed up. But if I have enough, if I had the correct data types inside of my list, this would have worked. So let's say I'm gonna remove 23 real quick, just as
Okay, instead of removing 23, can we convert the list into a string? I guess, convert the whole value into a string, then use the same join, see if it's gonna work. No.
Okay, you're saying convert it into a string and then do the dot join?
Yeah.
Okay. So I could do that. So let's say, so I printed out, right? I got my list and I see that the only one that's not an integer is index 1. So let's say I do, I'm gonna save this to a variable. Say list of keys from student is equal to, boom. So now I'm gonna say list of keys of student, or actually I could even do a for loop. So for I in range len list of keys of student. And then I could say if list of keys of student at index I is dot is numeric. So this is going to return true or false if it is a number. All right. So I'm going to say list of keys of student. If it is numeric, then I want you to reassign list of keys of student at index I to be equal to string of list of keys of student at index I. So now let's print list of keys of student. Okay, so I get my list of keys. I identify that one of them isn't a string. So then I do a for loop. This for loop goes in through the length of my list, and I'm iterating through each one of the indexes. So I'm calling list of students at index 0, 1, 2, 3. This I is representing the numeric value of each index. And I'm asking, hey, is this numeric? Is it a number? If it is a number, then I want you to reassign whatever variable or whatever it is that's in list of keys from student at index I to the string of list of keys of student index I. And hopefully that works. So let's see. Okay, so we get an integer object has no attribute is numeric. All right. So let's say I check type is number int. Wonder if that will work. Okay, so that one worked. All right, so I just changed it. All I said was, hey, if the type of list of keys of student at index I is integer, then I want you to turn it into a string, or use variable reassignment to turn it into a string.
Real quick though, I didn't. My intention wasn't the whole extra work, but what I was looking at is on line 46. What we did at line 50, string, then with the parentheses. Is it not possible to do the same on line 46? Like you have string, then in parentheses list of student keys.
Have all of this on line 46?
Yeah, to convert that into string. No.
No, I mean, there is a way to do it, but it's a little bit fancy and out of scope. This will be the more practical and more understanding way of doing it, right? Because here I could actually see what's going on with the code, see what the person writing this code did, and why they did it. Does that make sense, Akeem?
Gotcha. Yep. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so now that I have the list, I could even do such a thing as .join, which we got a little bit off topic, but this is what our original plan was going to be. So now let's see it happen. Yay. And now we see them all change with a little space and it turns into a string. Awesome. So that's a little bit of dictionary manipulation using keys and values. We could even get now the items. So now let's go with print. And in this case, I'm actually going to take off the original student. Let's say that I just want dot items. Okay, so now we see that when I print items, I get a dict items, and it's a list, right? And at each individual index of a list, I have a tuple. And the tuple holds a key and value pair. All it did was replace my dictionary for a list of tuples. Instead of having a dictionary of key value pairs, I have a list of tuples of key values. All right. Does anyone have any questions about the different things that we can do with dictionaries and dictionary manipulation? Okay, awesome. So now let's go into accessing through setDefault. And I think that's the last thing we'll cover before going on a break. So now, earlier, I went over getting the get method, right? So let's go with print. And I want to get, and let's say unknown. When I run this, I'm going to get none because unknown doesn't exist inside of my student dictionary. We could see it up here, right? It's not here. And let's actually take off this update so that we won't have to worry about this extra stuff. So we know that it's not actually in there. There's no such thing as the key of unknown inside of my dictionary. So I can't grab a value with it. So now let's say that I go to print student dot set default. All right, and if I float over set default, it's actually going to tell me, oh, went away. There you go. So it's going to tell me the key, which key it is that I'm looking for, and then what default value it is that I want to give it. So I'm going to give it first the key. I want to look for unknown. And if unknown doesn't exist, I want you to give it the default of true. And let's print student right after that. Okay, so I tell it to get unknown. Unknown doesn't exist. Since unknown doesn't exist, I give it the set default value and I tell it to print. So now it checks, hey, does unknown exist inside of my dictionary? Okay, it doesn't exist. So I'm gonna make a key for unknown and give it the value of true. And then when I print student, we'll see that the last key in my student dictionary is now unknown and its value is a Boolean of true. And that is how set default works. Does anyone have any questions over set default versus get versus the square brackets?
When assigning values, just like the set default did there, can you use a different method to do that, right? With the set default. I'm not sure if you did that earlier. So inside the value.
Use a different method to do what?
Yeah, I know you've used updates. So aside the set default, can you use, where you have the dot get, can you put the value with it? So insert it into that or no?
No, so I could put a value in here. Is this what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I could put a value in there, but that would still return to me. Interesting. So now let's say I want to print student.
Well, unknown is in there now. I think that's why it came back true.
Okay, perfect. So if you use get, it's going to look for unknown. And if unknown isn't there, then it's going to give you true. But if you see the dictionary, the unknown key and the value of true was never added. Right? Our dictionary still exists without the key of unknown and the value of true. I just gave it a default so that instead of giving me none, it would give me whatever it is that I pass as a second parameter. Whereas set default, it will return to me the second parameter, just like get did, but it will also add the key value pair into my dictionary. Does that answer your question, Akeem?
Yep. Thank you.
Of course, no problem. Okay, awesome. So right now it's 4:48. Let's take a 12-minute break. Oh, sorry, 6:48. Let's take a 12-minute break and let's come back at 7. All right, welcome back, everyone. Let's go over looping and comparing throughout dictionaries. So let's say that I wanted to, so let's say I want this, right? So I have string is equal to, hey there, what are you doing? And I wanted to find out which one of these letters is inside of my string the most. Now I could do something, or let's say that I wanted to find out that the same number of letters are inside the string, right? So let's say I should probably say string here, and let's just go with AA, BB, and CCC. So now I could just loop through it and get the count of it. But if that would work great for something like this, but if I had a string that I didn't know the length of it, and let's say that string was ridiculously long and completely mixed up, then dot count would probably not be the best function to do, because dot count would actually loop through that entire string over and over again as I go through each index. Right, so let's say I want count of letters, and I'm just going to make that into an empty string. So let's say for I in mocking string, then I want, oh, hello. And let's do range. There you go. Sorry, brain messed up a little bit. And now let's say that I just want to print mocking string at index I. So we see that I'm grabbing each individual letter, right? So that's great. But now let's say that I wanted to append it into my dictionary. So we already went over the in keyword. So let's say that I go if mocking string I is in my count of letters, then I just want count of letters at mocking string I 2 plus or equals 1. Else, meaning it's not in there, then I want count of letters at mocking string index I to be equal to 1, because there's one instance of it, right? And let's just print my dictionary in this case. Okay, so we see we have A for the very first letter, then we have, because it didn't exist, right? So I ask it, is the letter of A inside count of letters? Count of letters is an empty dictionary, so no, it's not. So then I tell it, okay, well then make it a key, and then assign it to the value of 1, which it does here. After that, my if statement becomes true because the letter A is inside of count of letters. So it just adds 1 to my value. And it does that for the letter B, and we see it happening. And then it does that for the letter C, and we see it happening. Right? So that's great. Now I know that each one of these is working correctly. So now let's say that I want to loop through my dictionary to find out what it is. So let's say current count, and let's make that equal to 0. Or actually, let's make that equal to Okay, let's first go through the for loop. Let's say 4 keys in count of letters. And now let's print key. I think that's correct. Okay, so now we see A, B, and C as the keys. So now let's print. Let's ask it to do for values. And let's print values. Yeah. So it looks like values didn't recognize it. It looks like it just recognized it as a keys, right? So let's say do comma values. Let's see, what is it saying? 4 keys and values, count of values, not enough values to unpack. Okay, so it seems like this isn't working exactly the same way that I wanted it to work, but I wonder what happens if I just use, if I have my keys, right? And I'm already getting my keys, and now all I need is the values. Maybe instead of calling values, I could call count of letters at keys. So we see A, and I see its values 3, B, and its values 3, and so on, right? So now let's say that I wanted to put that, or even better, instead of even iterating through it, well, that's how you grab the key and the values, right? But right now, what I want to figure out is if each one of these is in there the same amount of times. So now let's say that I want to find out, and let me just comment this out. Let's find out the length of count of letters. Okay, so we see the length is, it has 3 key pairs. Okay, so it has 3 key pair values. So now what I can do is I know that the values are just numbers, right? So since I know that the values are numbers, I can say sum of letter values. And I could make that equal to list. And in this list, what I want is count of letters dot values. And since it's a list, I could use the list method of sum. And I should probably print that so that we could actually see it. Sum of letter values. So now I print it, now we got 9. Okay, that's fantastic, but it doesn't tell me that it's actually equal to the to the amount of how many letters are inputted in here, right? So now let's say that I do, well, I wonder. Let's do this remainder, and let's do len count the letters. And let's check if that is equal to 0. Because if it's equal to 0, then we know that the same amount of letters are inside of this string each instance, right? There's the same amount of A's, same amount of B's, and same amount of C's. So now let's do this, add a B in there, and we run it. So we know this isn't working correctly because it's giving me each one of these, right? But instead of doing the sum, maybe what I can do is grab the list. And once I have, oh, that's not what I meant to do. And once I have the list, then I could just iterate through it. And let's make this range, actually. And what I can say is if started at 1, because I don't want it to touch the same index again. And I can say if sum of letters, and then let's just make this letter values. And I can say if letter values at IDX.
I'm sorry if this seemed like a dumb question, but wouldn't you start it at 0?
I would want to start at 1 because if I start at, so this is why, let me show you. Is IDX minus 1. So if I start at 0, IDX minus 1 would be -1, and it would tell me that it's out of index. And that's the
Okay.
reason why I would want to start at 1.
Okay.
So I can say that if it's greater than the one before it, then I want it to return false. And then if it makes it through the entire for loop, it will return true. Oh, sorry. Let me. Well, this would be if I put it into a function. So let's say print. Print false. And here we'll say print. Okay, so if we only see true at the end of my code compiling, then that means the same amount of instances are in there. If we see false, then that means that there's something going on. So we see false, true is still going to be triggered because it's not inside of a function. I guess we could turn this all into a function. Let's see. Df same amount of letters. It's going to take in a string. And let's just indent all of this. Boom. Let's take off this print statements and turn it into return. So now I can call the function same amount of letters and pass in mocking string. And let me just change this for string. Same thing here. And same thing here. All right. Okay, so we see that it's false. So that's great. Let's turn it back into where it would be true. And now we see that it's true. So it takes in the string, iterates to the string, builds a dictionary where we would have each individual key value pair, showing us each letter at its index and each value. From there, we grab the values using the list of values. And then we iterate through the list of values to make sure that they are all the same value. And if they are not, then we return false. And if it is, it will go all the way through the for loop and return true. Does anyone have any questions over this function?
You kind of lost me at some point as to what
Yeah.
exactly we're trying to do.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I lost myself actually. Let me clarify. So we were trying to make sure that this string has a same amount of instances for every letter in the string, right? So right now we only have A's, B's, and C's. And by the end of this function, we would need to know true, meaning that there's 3 A's, 3 B's, and 3 C's, or false. Maybe there's 3 A's and B and C may have a different value. So what we do is
So, sorry, are you saying all the letters should have the same counts? Like if A is 3, B should be 3, C should be 3, or doesn't matter?
correct. Yeah, so like for example, let's say if I threw a Z in there, right? This would now be false because Z only happens 1 while all the other letters are in there 3 times. Does that answer your question, Akeem?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. This is one good exercise to manipulate dictionaries and to learn how to manipulate string again. I would recommend trying to practice this function on your own so that you guys could see it and get used to with manipulating dictionaries. All right. Does anyone have any questions?
Oh, I have a quick question. How are we adding data to the dictionaries? Just by doing the count of letters. At what point in this function does that happen?
Got you. So in this function, we actually, this should be string. So that happens here.
Last
I
print. Okay.
say again.
The error was because of the last print, but you commented the other ones out. So good.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. So I'm actually appending values into the dictionary right here. So I'm saying to iterate through the string, and then here is where I'm telling it to adopt a key, which will be the string at index I will be representing the key, which we saw was A, B, and C. So let me try to demonstrate that again. Print count of letters. And let me just call the function. Oh, it's going to say mocking string doesn't exist. It doesn't. Yeah, so it goes through and it asks it if it's inside of the count of letters. If it's in the count of letters, it's going to aggregate by 1, which is why we see 2 and 3 here. And if it's not inside the count of letters dictionary, it's going to initialize it as the value of 1. Like we see here, 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 and here. Does that answer your question, Andrew?
Yes, thank you.
Of course. Okay, great. So that's it for the lesson for today. So let's move on into some exercises. And let me just share this with everybody through the chat to ensure that we all have it.
Real quick though,
Mhm.
looking at this, can you try to use some other methods? Like when you have like the range, the loops and the loops and the if statement. Is it possible to do something different, or this is just the best way it can go?
So this is the best way we can go for doing an unknown amount of string, right? This would be the most efficient way of doing it. Is there a shorter way of doing it to where I can do it to where we can get the same result? Yes. So we could say count, or let's name it last count is equal to 0. And why yellow? Oh, because then it was never used. Okay. And then I can say for I in range len string, And then I can say, if last count is equal to 0, then last count equals string dot, oh, I can't spell string, dot count. And I wanted to count how many times string I is present. Else, I wanted to check if last count is not equal to string dot count string I, and if it's not equal to, then it will return false. Else, last count will equal string dot count at string I. And then it could return true. So let me go with print string at I and print last count. And let's make this to where it would be true. So I could do it this way, right? But you see how it's continuously iterating. So it goes into the first letter, which is A. And then when I use the dot count function, the dot count function makes it go through the entire list or whatever it is that I'm giving it, whether it be a string or a list. It goes through it all over again. And it essentially gets a counter of how many times the index that it's currently located at is equal to the argument that I passed into it. So we see A, 3, 3, and 3. It happens 3 times. So just in that amount of time, it went through the same string. I want to say 6 times now. So it's gone through the string 6 times. Then it goes into B. So there's another 6. So now it's gone through it 12 times. And then C, and it goes through it another 6 times. So now in total, it iterated through my string 18 times just to get the same outcome. Whereas if we use a dictionary, it only iterates through string 1 time. Does that make sense, Akeem?
Yep.
I
Thank
have
you
a
for that.
question.
Yes, of course, Eki.
So line 69, well, doesn't it return false if it's smaller, like IDX is greater or smaller?
Oh, that is true. Yeah, that's perfect. So that would be incorrect, right? So let me fix this. I get what you mean. So like if this was Z instead, then technically it would still return true. Let me run it. Oh no, so it still returns false. I wonder why. Oh, you're saying what if it was, let me see. Yeah, so you're right? So this conditional that I have down here isn't doing it correctly. Instead, what I should be asking it, if it's not equal to IDX. So now we see that it returns false. Thank you so much, Seki. I really appreciate it. Good catch. Awesome. Okay, so let's go into our first challenge of the day together. And then from there, we'll break up into groups. And I apologize, but it seems like today we have a pretty light class. So we'll fork the challenge. So we got, what's your grade? We could probably just do this one together. I'll let you guys drive me through it. So write a function that takes in a number parameter represented by a GPA and returns the corresponding grade. So we got 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.9. Okay. Great. And it's supposed to return the corresponding grade. Oh, so this is actually a perfect one that we could answer with the dictionary. Does anyone have any suggestions about how I could go about fixing this? Or solving this with the dictionary?
We would make a dictionary with like the number 4 equaling the key equaling A, 3, B.
Nice. So we got 4, and then that's supposed to be A. Then we got 3, that's supposed to be B. 2, C. And this 1. Just D. And I guess we could do anything below that. All right, so let's go with 0.9. Let's make that F.
So why didn't you do, I don't know the signs. Everybody like understands the signs is like less than and more than. The
Mhm.
alligator to the left is how I know it. Can you do the alligator to the left and then an equal sign for the last line? Or like alligator to the left for 1, not that one.
Oh, I see. Like putting a conditional here.
Yeah, couldn't you do that for F?
So I can't necessarily do that for a key. I could put the condition within. No, so I can't put logic inside of a dictionary. A dictionary is strictly to store data types. I can
Okay.
maybe. Yeah, so a dictionary would have to be strictly to storing data types. So we could
Okay,
handle.
so for F, you'd actually have to put 0.9 or less or lower.
Right, but since we can't put that in grades, we'll have to handle that as an edge case. So let's
Okay.
worry about this one. And let's worry about that one last. Okay, so now that I have grades, what do I do to be able to get my return statement?
So return will be grades, then yeah, square bracket, then 4.
Well, I think I would want to pass the num, right?
No.
Yeah, so I'll pass. Awesome. So let's just print that as well so that we could see it. Okay, so I see that num was the number 4 and it returned A. That's why we got true. Then we got 3, we got true. Okay, so that worked great. This was great to solve the dictionary. Go ahead.
Can we use a list or tuple to solve the same thing? Like have num equals a list of the grades and sort of using dictionary.
Use a list for the grades.
Yeah. Then write a logic if statement to get each value.
Yeah, that works too. We could do that as well. Let me finish up this one, then we'll switch to the list method. Because now we have to worry about the F, right? So let's say if num not in grades and num is less than 1, then return F. Let's see. Oh, that doesn't work for console. Okay, awesome. So now that worked, and then I could turn it into 0.5 and it would still work. Nice. And if I tried turning it into, I don't know, let's say 5, because it's not in the dictionary, it breaks because it doesn't know what to do with that information. Awesome. Does anyone have any questions over how we solve this with a dictionary?
So anything less than 1, we can use that as a key. Is that why we didn't put that in the dictionary in the first place?
Are you talking about F?
I'm talking F, the 0.1, 0.5. Is it that we can use that as a key?
So we could use it as a key, right? But then I would have to define everything from 0.9 all the way down to 0. Because I can't put conditional logic. I can't just put any if num less than 0 and then have a return f. Actually, I think it's letting me do that. Let me see if that works. Oh, forget that doesn't work that way.
Actually, my question, why can't we just have just the key for 0.9 equals f?
So have this be f.
0.9, no, just 0.9 equal then f.
Okay. Yeah, so I could do that, right? And when I run it, it would return true. But that's very I'm looking only at that edge case. Because now if I have 6, what is it supposed to return? Right, it's still supposed to return an f, but now it doesn't do it because 0.6 doesn't exist in there. Does that answer your question, Nikki?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. And then you said you wanted to do it with list indexes, right? So let's say I want to start with grades and I turn it into a list now. So now we got A, we got B, we got C, D, and F. Okay. So now from here, what, Akeem? Or
I'm
anybody?
thinking if we use the if statement, if num
Okay.
equals a
If num is equal to what?
equals, oh God.
Anyone else want to give it a shot?
I think it might have to be your trick.
I think you might be breaking up, Akeem.
With this.
Can anyone hear Akeem or is it just me?
No, I can't hear him either. He keeps cutting out.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. Let's take this opportunity to break into breakout rooms and then start working through today's problems. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording. All right, welcome back, everyone. We're going to be going over 2 exercises. So it'll be the camelCase exercise and the FizzBuzz exercise. So in the camelCase exercise, what we're going to do is we're going to identify the string. And if the string has an n, then we want to make sure that we turn it into a camelCase, just like this. So let's go through it. So let's say drawers of variable, and I'm gonna make this a list. So my thinking process is, let's say I want to create a list to hold all characters in lowercase and with proper thing from these, I don't know, underscores. Okay, so in order to create that list, I'm going to iterate through the string. If a character is uppercase and if a character is uppercase, then I'll append it to my append to list as a lowercase and with a underscore. And then after that's done, I can then return joined list. Awesome. Go ahead, Akeem.
Oh, shoot, can you hear me?
Yes, you're okay. So I have list of variable characters. I can make that to an empty list. So now I want to iterate through it. So for I in range len var name. And then I want to say if var name at index I is upper. If it is upper, then I want list of varchars to append, and I could just make this into an F string underscore, and then var name at index I dot word. Okay, so seems to be angry about this. Oh, and it's because I'm not closing it.
Quick question.
Go ahead.
Is there only one way to fix this, or is there more than one way to do this?
There's definitely more than one way to do this.
Okay, so then as long as you get the answers correct and you can show your work on it, then it's considered
Yep.
okay. Okay.
Exactly. Okay, so then now that I have all of that there, I can now return a join of my list of bar characters. Okay, so let's see if that worked. Okay, so they're all false, so that's motivating. Let's see. Let's make this answer. Make that equal to the list of var characters. And then return, for now, I'm just gonna return true. Answer equals dot join list effect. Oh, I'm gonna say that I'm not using it. So let's say I want to print answer. Oh, okay. So right now I'm currently adding all the ones that are upper, but I never specified to add the ones that are not upper. And then so let's say else list of varchars dot append, and then I just want bar name at index I. Okay, and now when I run it, my name is Kramer, first name, an array of names. So now I can return answer. And if I run this, I see all trues. Perfect. Does anyone have any questions over how we solved or how I solved this problem? Pretty simple. Okay, awesome. And now we got FizzBuzz. So let's take a look at FizzBuzz. Okay, so in FizzBuzz, the FizzBuzz test is an interview question designed to help filter out 99.5% of programmers or programming job candidates. The text of the programming assignment follows something similar to this. Write a program that prints an object with a number of keys. the key is the number, and the value is either the number, fizz, or buzz, or FizzBuzz. But for multiples of 3, assign the keys values of fizz instead of the number. And for multiples of 5, assign the keys values of buzz. And if it's both 3 and 5, then FizzBuzz. Okay, awesome. So it's supposed to be 4i in range num. So that's going to go through each individual number. And here we'll just do answer equal to a dictionary. And then we'll say if I modulo 3 is equal to 0 and I modulo 5 is equal to 0, then I want answer I to be equal to FizzBuzz. Then I can write my elif I modulo 3 is equal to 0. This one should just be fizz. And let's do elif I modulo 5 is equal to 0. And then let's do answer I is equal to buzz. And then lastly, an else statement saying that answer with the key of I is I. And once I'm out of my for loop, I want to return answer. So this will go through the numbers of 1 through 100, I believe. Oh, so this is supposed to be inclusive. So I want to make sure that this is +1. Go ahead.
So for me, I did range 1, then num +1, 1 comma, then I don't know if that's gonna change it now. So
Oh, that is definitely going to change it because we don't want 0 to be in there. So thank you. So we don't want 0, so we want to start at 1. So now we start at 1, and then we want it to be inclusive, so we add 1 in range. And now I say if I modulo 3, meaning that there's 0 for the remainder after it's been divided by 3 is 0, and there's no remainder once it's been divided by 5.
quick question.
Go ahead.
Because I was having this conversation with Saki Bank earlier. So when you say modular 5 equals 0, so that means that is multiple of 5. Is that correct? So it's like it's checking true or false when you do that.
It's checking that when it's divided by 5, it has no remainder. So that's what I'm asking. So for example, I have 15. If I say 15 modulo 5, then 15 divided by 5 is 3, but there's no remainder. So the remainder is 0, and that's why equal to 0 would be true, right?
Okay, it's not that it's multiple of 3, it's divided by 3. Okay.
Yeah.
And there's no remainder. Gotcha.
Awesome. So now when I run this, it should hopefully give me true, but it's giving me a key error. So let's see. Traceback. Line 1 and line 21 and FizzBuzz. Oh, I have a double equals for all of these, which I do not want double equals. I just want an equal sign. FizzBuzz, fizz. Okay, there you go. Awesome. So it gives me true. And just in case I wanted to see it, let's print answer. Ooh, this is going to be big. All right, so we see fizz, we see buzz, fizz, and so on. But that is how you do FizzBuzz. Does anyone have any questions over FizzBuzz? No questions? You guys want to do one more together? Or are we done?
Yeah, do one more.
Let's do one more then. Which one do you want? Let's do it, Akeem.
I actually don't have any preference.
Okay. Let's see. LastFour seems like it would be interesting, so let's try that one. Let's fork it. I might have overestimated my abilities. We got 9 minutes left. Let's see. So look into using the following built-in methods: string, split, slicing. Okay. Write a function that takes in an argument that represents a social security number and returns the last 4 digits as a string. Okay, so it looks like I could possibly just turn it into a string. So let's say string social and make that equal to str social. And for now, let's just print string social. Let's comment out these two so that we don't get too much noise. Okay, so it's printed out and it's a string now. Just to make sure that it is a string, let's do type. Okay, so class string, awesome. So I do have it as a string. So now that I have it as a string, maybe I could do last or string last or, and make that to string social, and I think I could do last4. So let's do -4, boom. And let's just do print string last4. Let's see what that does. Okay, so that does grab the last 4. So I'm just slicing it to the last 4. So now I could just return string last4. If I run that, should give me true. So now I got true. If I uncomment the following 2 and I run it again, I get all 3 trues. Awesome. And that is how you do the last4 social in Python. This is just string slicing. I'm just basically using the -4 to tell it to go back 4 indexes and then give me the remainder of the string. Does anyone have any questions over how we did the last4 social?
If I want to loop over this, so I can have an empty list, then when I loop over it, then the last, if I have like a range and length, if I have the length, so I can just get the last 4 of the length. So if the length is 10, so I can just get the last 4, then insert that into the empty list. Does that sound good?
So you're saying make it into a list. So let's see.
So I have an empty
Let's see, last4, make that equal to an empty list, and then for I in range len social. I think you would still want to make it into a string though, or else it's not going to make it iterable.
Okay.
And then you said, so if I want
Oh,
this, reverse it,
first.
and then I could do if I is less than 4, right? Because technically it would be the last 4 indexes.
I'm sorry, really quick question. When you use I in that, for I in reversed, I is just meant to be like a blank integer, right?
So I is supposed to be a number here. If I'm doing this, I is supposed to represent a number.
Okay, so it's just a placeholder for a number.
Yeah, so if I
Okay.
print I, it's done, I run this. Oh, why are you object type integer has no len? Well, that's why I turned it into a string. Oh, got you. There you go. See, so we got 8 and all the way down and so on.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
3.
So now I could say if count is less than 4, then I want to do LST of 4 append and then string social index I, and I want to do count plus or equals 1. And let me see what the LastFour of social look like after I do that. Okay, so it gives me the LastFour, but it gives them to me backwards. So I guess I could just reverse it. So let's say return dot join, and then it would be LST of LastFour dot reverse. I think that might do it. Let's see. Join LC dot reverse can only join an iterable. I mean, it is a list, but maybe it's because I'm trying to do the dot reverse. Let's see. Correct order equal to LSD of 4 dot reverse. Current correct order. So hitting it with dot reverse is giving me an error, so maybe I could do reverse. List of LSD of LastFour. Maybe reverse instead of reverse.
You're printing. Okay.
So I printed the correct way, and I printed this way.
Yep.
So I wonder maybe if I just cast it back into a list. Okay, so I just need to cast it back into a list. Okay, so now I could do return dot join. Boom. Boom. Okay. Awesome. Sorry, I kind of took off right there. I was trying to make sure that we made it in time. So I'm gonna go through the reverse list. I'm gonna ensure that I only grab 4 by making this counter and making it less than 4. I'll increase the counter every time I append, kind of like a while loop, right? And then now that I appended and I only have 4 individual digits or individual string numbers inside of my list, then I could just reverse that list and join it after I cast it back into a list object instead of a reversed object. Does that answer your question, Akeem?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you so much. That was really.
Yeah, of course, no problem at all.
Can you show us how to use the string split to solve this question?
The split?
Yeah.
Well, I think that would be if I wanted to work specifically with list instead, right? So let's say list of social, and I can make that string social dot split. Where's it dot r split? Let's do split. Oh, I should probably print that, huh? Okay, so that's not giving me what I want there. So let's see. Wonder
I
what
think
will.
split only works on strings.
Yeah, I would split it in spaces. Let me see if I could. How to split a string into list of characters in Python. Let's see. How do I split list into list of characters? So this guy says to use the list constructor. That will do it. There's got to be an easier way of doing that. Oh, there you go. I could just use the star method. So it looks like you could do this. There you go. So that gives you 5, 4, 3. It gives you a list of characters if you do it that way. And it was also saying that you could do it as such. But I'm not sure if that's the case. Let's check. Okay, so you could do it like this as well. We just turn it into a list that way, and it would splice it into individual characters. But I mean, from there, essentially, it would be the same thing, right? You could grab from -4 and then call the index. And it would just give you the last 4, and then you could use that join. You return that. And it would just give you true as well. So it'd be essentially the same thing. I guess just with one extra line of code. Whereas if you just used it as a string, you could grab it from the last 4 index as well. Seems like splicing in the string and the list work exactly the same. Was that what you were asking, Seki?
So the point of using the split is just to turn it to a list.
Yes.
Okay, I thought you can use that to get the last 4 digits.
No. Yeah, the split will just turn a string into a list.
Thank you.
Of course. All right, everyone, that's all the time we have for today. So thank you so much for joining me today. And I am looking forward to seeing you all on Wednesday. Thank you so much for your time, everyone. Have a good one.